Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge, and we welcome back Tane, who we've missed over the last two episodes. Welcome back, Tane. What's been keeping you busy and putting some stuff in your basket?
Yeah, no, I've missed a few exciting episodes, but it's been good to go back and listen to them. I think something I've learned over the last couple of weeks has just been that sometimes the answers that you're searching for when you're in a space of not quite knowing what you're wanting to do will come to you. I think, while I was in that position, it's so easy for us to go, oh, I need to find the answer. Oh, I know what's deep inside. But I think sometimes it's just letting those answers find you. And that's been a really awesome, I guess, yeah, finding and learning for me to see that sometimes those opportunities will come to you. Sometimes other people will re-spark that fire that's inside you. So really just, I guess, flipping that narrative to go, yes, it's awesome to be proactive and go and seek amazing opportunities, but sometimes those opportunities will come to you.
And that's such a great learning because we're conditioned to just keep finding the answers and knowing all the answers to everything. And even if we don't know the answer, we just make up an answer. But like AI, we just hallucinate and make it up because we go, hey, this is what it should be. But it's awesome for you to go, actually, I don't have to have all the answers all the time. My learning over the last week actually happened this morning when a client of mine introduced me to the Japanese concept of ma, which I'd never heard of before. And I was like, oh, what is this all about? And it blew my mind. So it's basically a concept where you encompass the meaningful space between the gap or interval between things, as opposed to just absence. So when there's space, there's reason for space. And it's really got me thinking about, just what you said just before about knowing all the answers. It's okay to have space and let the space be. And I think about how many times in our life we don't actually have any space to just have space. We have these devices all the time. And I think about times in the past when you would be at you'd go to a cafe or you'd be on the bus or whatever, and you just have space and enjoy the space. But now we fill the space with devices because we're going to be busy all the time. So it really got me thinking about this, and also it really got me thinking about the guest that we have today, who, who does some really cool stuff in the space, I'm not going to reveal right now, but you'll see what I mean as we go forward. So that was my learning, and something I want to think about over the next few days, this concept of MA, M-A. But enough about us. As always, the two of us can keep chatting forever, but it's not about us, it's about our guests. And for those of you that jump on often, you know that we scour the country and the world to find people that we think are interesting. Everyone's interesting, everyone's got a story to sell, to tell, not to sell, to tell. And today I'm so privileged and very honored to have our guest with someone that I am inspired by the work that they do. And we connected a few years ago in person at a cafe somewhere, and they were on the start of their journey. And it's really amazing to see what they've established and done over the last few years. But even then, before they started doing what they wanted to do, they're a pretty inspiring human being. And I'm pretty sure that those of you listening will find a lot of solace and a lot of knowledge in what they've got to share today. And also, maybe you can relate to some of the things that they have experienced. Welcome to the podcasts, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Hopefully, drop some wisdom bombs and some golden nuggets for those who are tuning in today.
I'm sure you will, Sarah. For those of us who know nothing about who Sarah is, who is Sarah today on the 16th of 17th of August 2025?
Yeah, great question. So, on the 17th of September 2025, I am currently a speaker and a coach, and I speak predominantly on mindset, resilience, adapting to change. And my journey into this space is a very interesting story. As you said, everyone's got a story. For me, it's been a lot of heartache and pain that has got me here. And I'm just somebody who loves to be able to always learn and grow and be able to give some of that wisdom back. So I'd love to share a little bit of that story. Have you got anything to kind of kick me off into that
Yeah,
space?
certainly. Let's get into it. So before we even get into your story, let's go back a little bit. If we met Sarah 7 years ago, and we said to Sarah 7, 8 years ago, "Hey Sarah, you're going to be a speaker in this space here," what would you have said at that point in time?
Well, it's an interesting question that you ask because exactly 7 years ago today, I was just come home from Colombia, had a phone call, and we were actually spending a lot of time at the moment in ICU fighting for my mum's life. So exactly 7 years ago today, my world was about to flip upside down, which is all part of the story and all part of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah, and it's crazy. So it's quite the universe is pretty crazy, right? Picking today and 7 years exactly. And if we go pre today and we go Colombia, you're on your adventure in Colombia, and would you have thought that this is the way your world was going to shift when you were over in Colombia doing your adventure?
Absolutely not. I don't know if any keynote speakers set out to be a keynote speaker. Often a speaker has evolved from their own story or their own journey, and they believe that they've got some wisdom or something to share with the world. So for me, the university student who started their PE degree down in Dunedin definitely didn't expect that I was going to be here 10 years later.
Yeah, crazy. And so what happened 7 years ago? What was that fundamental shift where your journey started, I guess?
My journey started a little bit before that 7 years, and I think it's important that people understand that piece of the journey. So I was a student down in Dunedin studying psychology and physical education. A typical Otago student, loved partying, loved going out. And one day I was lying in my flat and I received a phone call from my mum, and my mum had rung to tell me that my father had fallen off a balcony up in the Marlborough Sounds, and he had actually died. So as a young 20-year-old, it was a real shock trying to process that information. And then, we had all the formalities and everything that happens when somebody dies. And then 2 weeks later, I went back down to Dunedin, and I did what a lot of people do. I suppressed the pain, I suppressed the grief, I drank a lot. I found myself in some really challenging places, not knowing how to navigate this intense emotion. And what a lot of people don't speak about is that, my dad wasn't the perfect father. He was actually an alcoholic, and the alcoholism was what actually killed him. And so I didn't really know how to process the fact that one, I was grieving my dad, but two, I didn't have a great relationship with him. And so as a young person, this was very complex for me to understand. And the only way I knew how to cope was to kind of drink and suppress and pretend like nothing had happened. That led me on after university to head up to Auckland, where I started on my personal development journey. And I started getting into rooms and started to listening to podcasts and reading books. And I started to unpack the weight of that trauma from dad dying, and life was back on track. And then that's what led me overseas to do my big OE. And I was lying on a beach in Colombia 7 years ago last week, and I received another phone call. This time it was from my brother. He had rung to tell me that my mum had had a brain aneurysm and that I needed to get back to Christchurch as fast as possible. And so it was exactly this time 70 years ago, 17th of September 2018, that we were in ICU fighting for mum's life. And there was a lot of ups and downs during this week. Ultimately, they told us that mum had less than 10% brain functioning left, and that she wasn't going to survive. So at 26 years old, next week, Monday the 22nd, will be 7 years since my mum died. And obviously previously my dad dying as well. And so as a young person, facing grief and loss was a space I had no idea about. All I knew was what had happened with dad. So this has really led me, been the catalyst for my growth, for why I'm a speaker now, is because I want to show people how to adapt to change, build resilience, and understand fundamentally how powerful our minds really are.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that there. And as where you're right now is you sharing your story, you speaking about how you can adapt with that. But as a 26-year-old, what was that like? Because you don't have the mindset at 26 years old where you lose both your parents. What was it like for you as a young person who goes, oh, actually, my world has shifted dramatically in a way that nobody can expect or even explain or understand?
Incredibly confronting. It really makes you grow up very quickly. At the age of 26, I was not only dealing with the grief of my mum and dad dying, I was also dealing with estates, wills, money, and things that I had no idea about. So for the first little while, I was just in this bubble and trying to navigate life. There was many days that I didn't think that I would get through, many days of not being able to get out of bed. Ultimately, the I look back at those times and they are what shaped me and they are what has led me here. Because without those challenges, without that heartache and without that pain, I wouldn't have been able to turn inwards and start to understand what I really truly understand about life now.
And thank you for sharing that there. One of the things I really enjoyed about, from this place of grief, and as you said, hey, your world has shifted, wills, estates, which nobody teaches you about in any context of life. What I've enjoyed or really been inspired by is how you've taken this and Spring with Sarah has popped up. Is there a specific reason why we've stuck with you Spring with Sarah? Is there a story behind that?
Yeah, of course. The one of the main stories, if you've ever been to Christchurch on Dean's Ave, right now the blossoms every year are blossoming at this exact time. And so every day when I was outside of ICU waiting to fight for mum's life, I was walking around the park and the spring blossoms were out. So spring is a really metaphorical term for me. What is spring? It's when you come from the darkness and the bloom again. If you know what a natural spring is where you're filtering through the dirt and the water. Also a spring back, being able to go come back to life. So spring is a very metaphorical term and it has many different meanings. That's why my business is called Spring with Sarah.
I love the metaphors. This is so crazy. I was like, oh, I've never thought about it that way. And it's really cool thinking about how each one of those metaphors actually brings you back into awareness of either where you are, the change, but also back to you as a person. Love it.
Yeah,
Love it. And the other thing I also loved about, I've been following you on your Instagram for a long time, and the flowers. Let's talk about the flowers that you give out and you send out and you put out there. What's the story behind that?
great question. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a massive lover of nature, like many of us, and particularly flowers. And one of the things that really helped me on my journey is there were these days that I was so deeply in the hole. Like I just didn't know how I was going to get to the other side. And I would walk around Hagley Park, but I would do something different. I would slow down and I would observe the flowers and the birds and the butterflies. And every day, instead of rushing on my walk to get to the next place, I would just sit and observe. And I did this every day on my healing journey. And what I started to realize was that we are nature. Nature is not something separate from us, and everything lives and everything dies. And when I started to have these realizations, it's like the cloud of grief started to lift a little bit. And that's what was really, really birthed my passion for growing flowers is because you take something so small, a seed, a bulb, a tuber, looks like absolutely nothing. And then watching that grow into its bloom and then it dies. And we as human beings, we have these same life cycles as nature. And for me, it's a way that I, one, connect with my parents, but two, it brings me so much joy.
And it brings the world joy as well. You think about when I think of what you're saying, flowers, just by seeing a flower, if you're having a bad day, you see a bright flower, it doesn't matter. You could be feeling the worst, but you might not go from 0 to 100. Even the 1% of a flower just does that, which is really, really amazing. And again, as it just touches back to the concept of Ma, which I heard about today, as you said before, just being there present in the absence of everything. It's wow, is we do it, but we don't do it as well. How often do we just keep rushing, as you said, and we do it all the time. I'm guilty of that there, and I'm sure Tana, you're guilty of that as well. And I'm sure Sarah, before you're also guilty of just moving and just not embracing, going, actually, let's just stop and literally smell the roses.
Totally. And as I say to clients, we are human beings, not human doings. And
Yeah,
we've been so conditioned to believe on the next thing, the next task, the next goal. When I have this, I will be X, Y, and Z. But
yeah.
life is happening right now. And the greatest privilege of both of my parents dying is understanding that every day is a gift. It's not a
Yeah.
given. And whilst the heartache and pain can still be raw at times, the lessons and the learnings that you learn from the death of both your parents at a young age has been profound. And it's truly like people take their lives for granted, and really practicing presence is what saved my life. And too many people are rushing through life, completely missing the point.
And that's so, so true and so profound, I mean, isn't it? Let that sit there because it's really important for people to hear that, to go, hey, you can just slow down and just be okay. Because as you said before, tomorrow's not guaranteed. There's nothing is guaranteed in life apart from death and taxes, and
Exactly.
yeah, and it's and what I would love to ask you is how did you embrace this? Because in terms of you lose both your parents, the world has changed dramatically. This you could have shifted and gone one way, but you chose to go the other way, because it's so easy, doing the hard thing is doing what you're doing right now, embracing it and using it to teach the world. The easy thing, quotation marks, to actually just be, oh, the world is terrible, wallow in pity, and woe is me. Is that a mindset you've always had, or was it something you've developed?
Definitely not something I've always had. And there was a period of time there, like naturally you go through, well, why me? Why
Yeah,
did both my parents die? What have I done wrong in my life to deserve this? And that victim mentality is a long road to nowhere. And I played in that victim mindset for a long time after my dad died. And all it did was keep me in cycles of addiction and patterns and negativity. And as soon as my mum died, I had this thought straight away that was like, both your parents don't die at 26 for you to not do something good with your life. And whilst I still played in the why me, poor me for a long period of time after mum died, I had this really great coach. It was about 18 months after my mum died. And I share this in my keynotes. And she said to me something that fundamentally changed the truth. And some people understand the weight of what she was saying, and some people will just brush off what she said. She said this. She said, Sarah, you realize what you're not changing, you're ultimately choosing. And it was from that day forward when she said that to me that I made the choice to no longer be the victim of both my parents dying. I made the choice to choose healing over suffering and to let this experience make me instead of break me. Our choices in life are fundamentally the most powerful tool that we have. And at any given time, you can change the direction of your life by simply making a different choice. Different choices lead to different outcomes. And so for me, how I got to where I am now is nothing special. It's just making different choices, the choice to not be the victim, the choice to do something different. And I want people to know truly that your choice is the most powerful thing you have.
I love that, Sarah. I love the choice thing, and it's really quite funny because one of my favorite quotes is, "When you were born, you look like your parents, and when you die, you look like your choices." And I think about that all the time. I was like, this is so true because every moment, as you said before, we make a choice. We make the choice, and the choice, you have power of the choice, right? You choose which way you want to go. And I love the message that you have there that how you chose. But sometimes it's hard to make that choice unless somebody helps you, the power of a coach, the power of your coach at that particular time. That,
100%. And
yeah,
that I would not be here where I am today. I've had so many different coaches. The best thing about getting a support, whether it's a guidance or a coach or a counselor, is that they will show you parts of yourself that you can't see. And
yeah,
so for me, what I realized early on after I'd made some really bad choices was that the best investment I could make in my life at that time was to invest in myself. And so I invested in my mind. I invested in my health because, as they say in life, you've got a million problems until you've got a health problem, then you've got one problem.
yeah,
And so for me, that's where I ended putting up my energy and my money because when you pay attention.
Yeah.
And so for me, my coach, she was really what helped me in those early days because I showed up and I did the work, and that's what created the shifts.
I love that. I love that saying when you pay attention. How beautiful is that? And how powerful that is because I think about I'm guilty of this. So you sign up for all these free things, you never go to them, or you just in a thing that's free, you go like whatever, or you take it for granted. Even every day you wake up in the morning, you take things for granted until you go, actually, wait a minute, as you said, being present in that moment goes, okay, what choice am I making right now? I love it. I love it. And talking about presence and choices. The one thing that again, I said at the start, I'm inspired by what you do, but I was inspired by how you posted every single day on your Instagram or your socials. Um, was there a reason for that? Was it for yourself or was it for other people? What was that for? And you'll see why I come to the question in a second.
Good question. No, there was many days that I didn't want to post, and there
Yeah.
has been still many days that I don't want to post. But I fundamentally understand in life that if you want to get from here to here, the the key is repetition and consistency. Repetition and consistency is the mother of change. And if you fundamentally understand that in any aspect of your life, people say that, you're lucky that you got where you are. It's like, no, I showed up every single day when you decided that you didn't want to post for 3 weeks. And that's totally fine. Everyone's allowed to make their choices, right? But I knew early on in the journey that if you want to get where you want to go, Sarah, it's going to require repetition and consistency. It's going to require no one liking your posts, crickets, no responses. Get okay with that. And that's what I did. And now going from 3,000 followers to 80,000 followers in 4 months isn't because I got lucky. It's because I posted every day to create that repetition and consistency.
And I asked the question because, people think about it's just about us posting on social media, but it's actually about how you live your life. As you said before, if you have the discipline to post consistently, it goes into other areas of your life as well. Because as you said before, you don't wake up every morning and go, yeah, this is great. I want to do this yet. You go wake up like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't feel like
I
posting
love
today.
that. Love that conversation. I get a lot of people coming to me when I'm coaching saying, Sarah, I lack motivation. And I'm like, okay, life isn't about motivation. Because
Yeah,
if you play life on motivation, motivation is fleeting.
yeah,
And you are making decisions based on your emotions. The key to any growth, whether it be business, personal, professional, is understanding that self-discipline is key. And if you hold a level of self-discipline, whatever area in your life that may be, exercise, food, business, posting on social media, the results are inevitable. But if you wait for motivation, it's fleeting. So always work on self-discipline, doing the thing, whether you want to do the thing or not.
yeah. And that's so powerful. This is something that I've learned as well over time. And you know, as you mentioned, I was the train of thought from a long time ago. You got to get motivated to do stuff. What is your motivation? But I very quickly learned this never happens. When you wait for motivation, you can wait a long, long time.
100%. Self-discipline is the key.
Is the key. And shifting a little bit, what is it like that moment when you had that big, when your post just went crazy viral? What is it like for you when you woke up in the morning to go, whoa?
Yeah, it was exciting at first, and then the nerves started to kick in. And if anyone listening understands the nervous system, it started to actually warp my nervous system a little bit because I was only used to posting in front of 3,000 people. And then when you get up to 40, 50,000, all of your self-doubts come back up. The inner critic of I'm not good enough, or maybe this is just a fluke, or all of this noise starts to creep in. So there was about 3 weeks there where I was having to do a lot of somatic practices to just regulate the nervous system. You don't have 3,000 people watching you anymore. You got 50,000 people. And the thing that also people say is that, they think that when you just get this big following, that life gets easy. And it's actually not. It's can be a lot harder because your expectations become higher, the pressure becomes higher. Having followers really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
It's just that people perceive that it means something. You still have to be able to turn that follower into a fan, into a client. So followers really doesn't mean anything.
And that's so true because it's just a number, right?
Yeah.
I went to this one training somewhere and someone said you can have 100,000 people following you who do nothing, or you can have 100 people who do everything. And he goes, well, what would you like? And I was like, yeah, this is so true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It really doesn't mean anything. And for those of you who may be listening who are growing accounts, like, oh, don't worry about the following. Stay consistent and repetitive with your message and who you're talking to, is the key to content creation.
Yeah, so true. And this, so you're a keynote speaker, you do some really awesome things. How does Sarah switch off and just look after herself? How does she go, this is my time?
Oh, good question. I get asked that question all the time. Switch off for me, I'm getting a lot better at it. In the early days, it was a lot more challenging. Switch off for me is very much nature. I'm somebody who loves to be around the sea, and the ocean and mountain biking. So anything where I am in nature, off my phone. And the best thing with mum and dad dying is I learned the power of presence. So it comes easy for me to be present because I'm so aware when I'm not. And so for me, switching off, honestly, like today, probably going to happen. I'll put on my exercise gear, not take my phone, just walk around Hagley Park. The blossoms are out. Um, so I think a lot of the time switching off can be the big things like getting away, but it's actually about learning how to switch off in the micro as well,
Yeah.
not just in the macro, and how to get the break when you've got 15 minutes between a client, how to actually reset when you've had a big day of keynotes and you've got another one in the morning. So many people think that resetting is like, I've got to go and do all of the big things. A lot of the time, it's actually all the little things that add up.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's so true in life. You're always searching for the big holiday or as you said right at the start, you're searching and searching. But if you just go, hey, I've got 10 minutes, I can just breathe or read a book or look outside, whatever it is, you got to do what's right for you at that point in time without expecting. And I like the word expectation. We have all these expectations. And there was a training I did a long time ago where they just said, when you have no expectations, your life changes. And it's so true. When you expect things, you always get disappointed.
That's right. They say expectations lead to disappointment.
Yeah, and then that's so crazy. Um, and a random question. Fishing is one of your jams. I see you post some really cool things with the fishing. Do you have any favorite spots where you enjoy spending some
Oh,
time?
a fisherman never tells their sports,
Damn
producer.
it, damn it, damn it. I
My
thought,
favorite fishing spots typically are up in the Marlborough Sounds, top of New Zealand. My dad passed up in the Marlborough Sounds, so it's a very special place for me, being able to go out there and fish, which is where he taught me to fish. It's like you feel at home. You know that feeling when you're somewhere and you're like, I just feel so present and at home. Um, I'm good at fishing, but a lot of people, I mean, I'm good at fishing for the average Joe, but I'm not that great.
yes, famous last words there, I tell you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to switch it a little bit, bring Tanya in because one of the things you've spoken about is coming home and being home and being present. And Tanya, you've had a little journey over the last few months, and coming home was a struggle for you at the start. And as you think about what Sarah has said, what does that bring up for you?
Yeah, I think it really resonates with me, just the power of coming home. And I think particularly for me, it was something that I've always been proud of where I come from, but I think returning gives you this new, refreshed and refined look at what the purpose is of what you're trying to do. But also, I think for me, having my family here, having friends here, and having people who can re-spark the passion of the amazing things you do. I think I almost probably got to a point where I was very much trying to create things that weren't necessarily there, or I was trying to seek values that, additional to what I already had. But coming back home, I now see, going back into my old high school, seeing old friends, it makes me realize that yes, a lot has changed in the sense of study and professional development and all that kind of stuff, and that's cool. But fundamentally, I'm still the same person that I was when I started this journey into adulthood. So it's really, yeah, it's been quite exciting to come back with a refined view of, yeah, what it is I want to get out of life, sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like seriously before it's those choices you make. Like sometimes you make the choice of growing, sometimes you make the choice of being the same, and we all do that there, which is crazy. Sarah, I'm going to go back to your story of being a keynote speaker. What is it like when you had your first keynote speak? And I asked this because I remember my first one. I was like, imposter syndrome, all these crazy, this why me to where you are right now. How's that journey been for you?
Yeah, it's been a journey of evolution, like all journeys. I didn't set out to be a speaker. It was my coach actually who said to me, Sarah, you've got a real story to tell here. Have you ever thought about being a speaker? And in that moment, I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I could do. It was 4 years ago on Monday, the 22nd of September, that I did my first keynote, and it was on my mum's 3rd year anniversary. The reason I chose to do it on that day was because it was about me rewriting the narrative, rewriting the story of this is the day that the hardest thing in my life has ever happened, and I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to speak and I'm going to rewrite that narrative. And I'm going to, and even now it brings a bit of emotion because
Yeah,
it was a really poignant time in my life where I was like, this is the hardest day, but it's also a day that I get to choose a different pathway and show the world who I am and what I can do. I've developed a lot from the first talk. Even my friends who have heard me speak, they're like, you're such a different speaker to the first version of Sarah that we saw. Every talk you do, you build a level of confidence on how to hold the audience, how to move the energy in the room,
yeah,
how to show up in an authentic way. So yeah, repetition and consistency is key, as I said before.
yeah. And also what I've also noticed is I could be just assuming this, but I've noticed that repetition, consistent, and also having intention is important. Without intention, all the other stuff. It doesn't have to be intention of growing, but the intention of just being present.
100%. And I always put in the intention before I do any keynote. You get to a level when you're speaking that things start to flow a lot easier. You're not having to feel so scripted. It starts to become more natural. And when I was first becoming a speaker, my only mindset was get on as many stages as you can and speak for free, speak in front of anyone. And all of that was just building the confidence because more people fear death, fear public speaking than they do death.
Yeah.
So, if you can get good at public speaking, it's a real tool, a real asset.
Yep, and I'm always gonna love Jerry Seinfeld for bringing that quote up. It's the best quote ever, and I've heard it so many times, and it's so so true.
So true.
So so true. And what is so again, repetition, consistency coming through, coming through, coming through. In this journey here, what has been the hardest point for you when you go, maybe I should change my mind? Has there been a point where you've just done this is me and I feel this? And I asked it from the intention of, a lot of us go through life and things are going well in whatever place. And there's sometimes a day when you go, actually, this is not me. We have the conversation.
Yeah, 100%. The hardest part for me, there's been many times that I've wanted to throw on the towel. There's been many times that I've wanted to go back to the easy path. One of the things that I always say to myself is, Sarah, you didn't come this far to come this far.
Yeah,
And if it was easy, everyone would do it.
yeah,
And think about that in life. If it was easy, everyone's doing it.
yeah,
And so taking the hard path will always have rewards. But you've got the valleys and you've got the peaks.
yeah,
Sometimes we're in the valleys, sometimes we're on the peaks. And the greatest lesson that I've learned on my business journey and personal growth journey is appreciate the highs and learn from the lows. And that whole mindset of always being a learner, being somebody who's always got a growth mindset, who's always a student.
yeah.
And
That's
that's the work, right? Is always being a student. There's always
yeah,
more to learn, there's always more to integrate. The other thing that I pride myself on as a coach is the embodiment and the integration. Most people want to work alongside me as a coach or a speaker because I walk the talk. I implement it in my own life. I've I've been able to take the tools and actually be the living product of the work. And there's so much information and knowledge and books and podcasts out there, which are fantastic. But the real ability is to be able to take the knowledge, the golden nugget, and apply it.
Yeah.
Because knowledge isn't power.
Yeah.
The application of knowledge is power.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love that so much because again, this is similar to what I work with my clients is the analogy I use is you can read all the books about doing a press up, but until you do a press up, you haven't done a press up.
100%. And it's so fundamental because knowledge is everywhere now. We're in the knowledge of just consuming, but
Yeah.
it won't change your life until
Yeah.
you understand, until you do the press up.
Yeah. And it's so crazy. And as you said before, the proliferation is so crazy now because of the advent of AI has meant that even our mental capacity has changed. I don't know if you saw the study a few months ago where they showed that the use of AI is decreasing the mental and cognitive ability of people, which is quite scary because you have all this information now and it's also being disseminated for you and being disseminated for you where you don't have to think anymore. So again, I'm thinking about, the space that you work in, the space that I work in, and I guess the space that Tanya is working with young people. It becomes really important now to actually get people to realize that knowledge, just information, but you've got to do something with it.
100%. And it's really important when people come through my programs, they get all excited because there's so many new tools and so many new learnings. And a lot of the time I have to say to them, like, all you really need to do is take one or two things and apply it. Like if you leave this room or if you leave this program and just walk out and go, this is good information, nothing will change. The
Yeah.
power comes in your ability to take that one thing and apply it.
Yeah, and I love that because it's the one thing, right? A lot of, as you said before, there's so many things out there. But sometimes when you do, again, one of my favorite sayings is when you do everything, you do nothing.
100%.
Yeah, so it's really beautiful how you emphasize just the one thing, whatever the one that 1% or 1.1% is, it makes a big change. If you do it consistently and repetitively, as you said, those come together. Beautiful.
One of the things I also see a lot in clients is that they fall off the bandwagon with repetition and consistency, and then they kind of spiral down and they're like, oh, I've lost it. And everyone falls off the bandwagon.
Yeah,
Literally everyone. Everyone breaks the consistency or the good habit at times in their life. The difference, though, is those who just choose, there's the word choose again, to get
yeah,
back on
yeah,
rather than staying off.
yeah. And again, staying off is a choice, right?
Totally.
It's a choice, right? Yeah. Making no choice is a choice, essentially, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is.
Yeah, no, I love it. And one of the cool things, Sarah, as I've noticed, is that you've also started to embrace the travel around. How's that been for you enjoying travel as now Sarah, the speaker, traveling and getting called into different places? That must be a different shift for you as people want you to come along to places as opposed to, at the start you have to hustle all the time.
There was this moment in time, like 2 months ago, where I sat back at a hotel and I was like, this is what the version of 3 years ago Sarah was only dreaming of. In the
Yeah,
beginning, I was filling all my own rooms, selling tickets, bringing that level of stress, being able to turn up to a location and someone's booked your travel and your hotel and they've filled the room for you, is a real shift. And I do not take that lightly, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, it it's still very exciting for me where I am in my journey right now. Sometimes people, they're like, oh, the travel's hard, the staying in hotels every week. Like I probably can see that down the track happening, but at the moment, when you're getting put up in a hotel or traveling around, it's all very exciting. So really just grateful for that and the opportunities that I've been given over the last few years has been amazing.
yeah, I love that because it goes back to what you said about being present. You could go, it's being tiring and all that, and it might be tiring physically, but in that moment of the presence, this is great. This is, hey, someone's paying me to be here to be in a hotel. This is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. No, very, very, very cool. Sarah, are there any other parts of your life that you'd like to share that, that are not out there publicly that you could actually, this is a cool part of my life that I'd love to share and maybe we can take away something from that.
Yeah, I mean, I shared the majority of my story. I think a part of the journey that I shifted and haven't really shared a lot is that I've come from a long line of addiction, a long line of trauma, and I think in New Zealand we have a lot of generational trauma, and a lot of people don't know how to break those patterns or how to step out of that. And I just think for anyone who has got past trauma or comes from challenging backgrounds, wherever that be, is that you have the ability to change that. You have the ability to break those pathways, and you have the ability to make a difference. And so, all of these things have happened in my life where I went down the wrong path, but ultimately they weren't the wrong path. They were just a learning, a lesson, and it's taken me work and time to forgive the actions of my younger self, whether that be doing too many drugs, smoking, whatever it may be, is that was evolving me to the person that I am today. So, for anyone who's listening, who's had a challenging background or maybe faced some trauma or addiction, I just wanted to remind you today, like the power is within you. I always say to clients, you are the problem. You are also the solution. If you want to change your life, it starts by turning inwards, understanding yourself rather than external. Everyone's looking externally for happiness or externally to solve the problem. You have the answers within you. It just requires you to be willing enough to look inwards in the mirror, because that's where truly the answers lie.
And also the hardest one to do, right? The hardest is looking at
If it
yourself.
was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, that is so so true. And thank you for bringing that up there because the trauma thing and trauma piece is so interesting because a few months ago I was at a training and the stat just blew my mind where the person said that generational trauma could be up to 10 generations, you know. So sometimes you're experiencing things that you have no idea why. But as you said just before, the why or the what or the how comes when you step inwards. When you keep looking outwards, you're not going to understand where it comes from or think about where it comes from. So, if something happened 10 generations ago, I'm not aware of it, but it's affecting me today, unless you are present and you step inwards, you're never going to address it.
Yeah, and they say a famous quote by Steve Jobs, which is you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking backward.
Yeah.
And breaking generational trauma is something that everybody has the ability to do if they want to make that choice.
Yeah.
And if they want to not pass that through their next generation, through their kids, then it is going to require them to look inwards. The other thing about trauma is that trauma is on a spectrum, and two people can experience the same event. One person is experiencing it as trauma and the other not. It's how our nervous system perceived it at the time. So it could be something like my experience having an alcoholic father and him dying and quite traumatic as we would perceive as trauma, or it could be simply a comment made by a teacher in a classroom that you at that time perceived it. So a lot of people are thinking that trauma has to be these big things. Trauma often isn't the big things. It's the small things compounding, whether that be a comment here or bullying here. Like it is so far and wide of a spectrum. So I just wanted to preface that today. Trauma doesn't have to be the big things.
Yeah, what a knowledge bomb right there. I'm gonna call it a knowledge bomb because it's what you said, it's the state of your nervous system whenever that episode happens, right? And we forget about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're often young, so the way we perceived it in that moment, and we're from when we were born, we've always been programmed by our society, by our parents, by where we grew up, by our schooling. We've always been programmed. And so, yeah, part of the work I do is actually starting to look at your current programming and ask yourself, what is it that I want to take forward with me, and what is it that I want to leave behind? Kind of for me, it's like unpacking the bags and then going, I've got to let that go. I've got to let that go. I've got to let that go. And these qualities, these traits, these things I love, I'm going to take those forward.
Yeah. And I guess that the hardest part is actually realizing you have a bag to carry, that you're carrying a bag. That's the first step, right?
Yeah, everyone's got a bag.
Yeah, everyone's got a pack. And it's such a great analogy that when you understand the analogy and what it actually means, it becomes so powerful.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's this work and the personal development and turning inwards and doing this work. As I said, if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's easier to choose the alcohol or the drugs or the suppressant or the projecting it onto your partner. That's actually the easy part. The hard
Yeah.
part is looking in the mirror
Yeah.
and When you start to look in the mirror, though, that is where the answers lie. And that's really what ha has happened in my life is that I had these big events happened and it forced me in a way to look in the mirror. I can either choose that path or I can choose that path. Whereas sometimes in people's lives, it's not as obvious and it's not so abrupt like it has been within my world.
Yeah, and it's I love this because one of the hardest things I've had to do was when I did shadow work, and shadow work really just exposes you at so totally, and you're like, wow, this is me from the other side of me, but it's actually me. You are that person. Um, and as you said before, if you don't step into that or choose not to step into it, it doesn't even disappear. It's still there.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the work is never done. I mean,
Yep.
I may be sitting here saying these things that I've learned on my journey. As I said before, though, I am still in the student seat, learning about myself, peeling back the layers. I still work through anger, frustration. I still have daily negative spirals. I still overthink at times. The difference being is that the toolkit that I've created has really helped me shift my life. I think a lot of people think that coaches or people that they look up to don't have life's challenges or struggles, which just isn't true at all. I'm constantly doing the work too. I'm constantly applying the tools. And it's really important that people know that the work is never really over.
Yeah, there is, and we're humans, right? Humans, humans doesn't matter, you know. And this is where it comes. Even coaches have mentors, because you need, like you said before, you need someone to question your blind spots, see your blind spots, and it's really again another saying I have with my clients is it's in what you don't see that the most power happens, and this is why you need someone to help you see that.
And they always say in this world as well, never hire a coach who doesn't have a coach.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. This is so true. Tane, any questions for Sarah?
I guess a question for Sarah, but probably more broadly to you too, PJ, is just around the coaching space. How do you navigate it in terms of being authentically you, but also, we've talked about how there's more and more tools and systems that we can use in that coaching space. How do you find that balance between, yeah, keeping it real so that it connects to you and you have some experience in it, but also utilizing some of these new tools and ideas that people are sparking across the world?
I'll let you go first.
Ah, thanks, Sarah. Great question, Tanya. And I think that the key what they said is authentic. I think as a coach, I've just got to authentically each session I come into has got to be me being authentic with the person I'm working with. And with my toolkit, I'm not just going to dish out a toolkit that I haven't tried before or is not right for
Mm,
the clients, you know. So I have tons and tons of different kinds of tools, but it doesn't mean it's an analogy like just because you have a hammer, don't use a hammer. You know, you might need to use uh, a dust cloth at that point in time. So, and the thing is, if I have a client who's chasing a tool, that's not the correct client for me because they're just coming for a tool. They're not actually coming for
mm, mm,
themselves because as much as we've got to be authentic, I think the clients also got to be authentic. And there's two kinds of clients that I work with. Sarah, you might also see this as well. There's those that come because they want to come, and then those that come because they've been told to come. And when you have that, then there's a big shift until you get the want to come is great. The have to come, you got to shift into I want to come. If they don't shift from a have to a want, then it's never going to work. It's never going to work for them. So that's how I work in that space there. But I'd love to hear what Sarah thinks about that as well.
Couldn't agree more. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The
Yeah.
clients who get the best results in any program or with any coach are one, the clients who invest in themselves, the clients who want to do the work and they want to change. Because when you've got that level of that want and that desire, you can help them so much. For me, authenticity is one of my strongest values. Um, it's really hard to be someone you're not.
mm.
Yeah.
And so for me, most of my clients come to me based on that because one, they either resonate with my approach, my story, or they just like the fact that I just say it how it is and I am just authentically me. Um, you know, one of the things I started the business on was I was started in the grief space and I realized really quickly that I wasn't good at it. Why? Because what I'm good at is helping someone go from where they are to where they want to be. When you're in the grief, you don't want to take someone from where they're out of it, because there's a natural level of cocooning somebody and allowing them to process that grief. So authenticity for me is a beautiful word and a big word that I use in the work. In life, I feel like one of the purpose of life is just to be who you are. Stop trying to be something you're not. Show up as you are, and honestly, life just gets so much lighter and easier.
100%. And I think this is just in any aspect in life when you're just your true self, you can just enjoy life. Because otherwise, and I read somewhere, when you lie to someone else, you're actually lying to yourself first, and the damage in there is going to be so crazy. So whenever you're pretending to be someone else, the damage you're doing to yourself is so hard, and you've got to go back into that work. And if you don't do that work, then who are you really?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Any other questions, Tony? Because that was a fantastic question that threw us both, which is great. Sarah, I want to reflect back to that point when we were at Coffee Culture in Rick and Maryvale all those years ago, and it's really so awesome for me to see where you've gone from there to here. And I still remember when we were there having that coffee or that conversation that day, you were about to do you were going to school and do some pretty cool things. And as you think about your own journey, I'd love for you to let us know how you feel about your growth. It's always great for other people to celebrate your success, but have you ever spent time to celebrate your own success to go, hey, this is really cool what I've done in my life?
Yeah, great question. When you're growing, you often don't know you're growing.
Yeah,
Um, And I have a very intentional practice of reflecting and seeing how far I come. Like I shared with you before, when I was sitting in that lobby of the hotel, thinking
yeah.
to myself, this is what the version of me 3 years ago was dreaming of. And so one of the things that I instill in my clients is celebrating the wins. And I know that you'll probably do this as well, is that in life, we are so quick to go, well, I'm not there yet. I haven't got hit that goal. I'm not there. And we completely miss how far we've come and the journey that we've been on. And this is a great book for either of you or anyone listening. It's been my favorite personal development book this year. It's called The Gap in the Game by a man named Dan Sullivan. And he talks about the gap mindset. And the gap mindset is between where you currently are and where you want to be. And I'm not there yet. If I just got to there, then I'll be happy. If I'm in the gap, so it's where you are to where you want to be. The key to life and really transitioning that mindset is focusing on the gain. Look at how far I've come. Wow, isn't it amazing how much I've grown, how much I've changed since that version of myself 7 years ago, or even 2 weeks ago. Most people live in a gap mindset. I'm not there. I need more money. I need this. I need that. And then wondering why they're feeling the way they are, dissatisfied with life, unhappy, stuck. When we're in a gain mentality of, wow, look at how much I've gained. Look at how much I've gained from both my parents dying. Now, that for a lot of people will go, how do you think like that? Well, it's like, well, I've gained a business, I've gained so many tools, I've gained opportunities, I've gained all of these beautiful things in my life from the hardest times of my life. And yeah, so that's really something that I focus on, is being in the gain rather than in the gap.
How powerful is that? That is so powerful in so many ways. As you said before, we're always chasing, but when you stop and look back, what have I done? And it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be 7 years ago. It can be 2 weeks, it can be yesterday. I didn't go for a run today. I went for a run today. Wow, what a gain. I didn't have fruits yesterday. I had fruits today. It can just be those small micro things, which add up, as you said, if you keep doing it over and over again and then celebrate them.
Yeah, it's massive, and it's the small micro, as you said, that creates the shifts. Um, yeah, too many people are chasing the carrot in life and then wondering why they're miserable. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, can I tell you a funny story? One of the tools I use with my clients, which they find the hardest, is I tell them to do 3 wins of the day at night, and they can't be the same every day. And they're like, oh, because it's so easy to go, oh, I was like, and when it comes to day 5, they really that's when they shift because it's now no more just about the same things.
Yeah.
But it takes 5 or 6 days for them. A lot of them stop on day three because it goes too hard. But those that push on and go, actually, let's just celebrate those wins. What they actually are is because we never do that there, right? We never stop and go, and an actual win, not just like, oh, I'm smiling today. Well, that's a win, but an actual reflection, intentional win. So I love the fact that you said it's the game mentality is really, really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's massive, and it's all about that focusing on what you do have rather than what you don't have in life.
Yeah, and we do have you on the podcast, which is why we're celebrating today, which is great.
So good to be here. Hopefully, I've shared a few golden nuggets today, and that someone's been able to resonate with something that I've shared. Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
You've shared some amazing, amazing golden nuggets today, but we've been speaking for an hour or so, and I know time is. I mean, you can share so much. We can keep talking for hours and hours, but in the interest of time, we're going to ask you our final question for the podcast. Our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and every episode we ask our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into a basket. So, as you said, you've shared so much knowledge, but is there one particular piece of knowledge that our listeners, myself, and Tana would go, "Oh, this is really powerful from any aspect of your life"?
Oh, which one to choose is the one that I'm going to add to your basket today, and hopefully to everyone's, because it is fundamentally the tool, the knowledge that changed my life. And it's what I shared before. What you're not changing, you're ultimately choosing. Your choice is the most powerful tool that you have in life. And different choices lead to different outcomes. So if you want a different outcome, it starts by making a different choice.
Boom, boom, mic drop right there. Love it. I love it. And I love we came back to that because that's so powerful because it's something we do every single day. It's really, really beautiful. Tana, any last words from you?
Oh, I'd just say as always, just a massive thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story, sharing how, you've obviously gone through grief, but how you've changed that mindset, changed that into a powerful statement for you and what you're doing now. So it's been awesome to hear about, I guess, just a snippet of your journey. And time's flown by. So it's been really awesome to hear.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate the work that you do.
Sarah, thank you for making the choice for being on this podcast. Yeah, it's really, really great seeing you, but also hearing your story from a different capacity. I know you as a person, but hearing your story and sharing your story with our community and also with those that are listening to this podcast is really, really beautiful. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge, but also thank you for being authentically yourself as you've chosen to share your story today.
It's a privilege. Thank you.
No problem. And if people want to follow you or get connected with you, how do they do that? They let us know. We'll put them in the show notes as well.
So if you want to follow me, my Instagram handle is Spring with Sarah. That's really where I hang out. Come and join me on that journey where I would suggest.
It's a pretty great place as well, everybody. It's a fantastic place. And we'll put your handle in the show notes as well, so we can just click on that if they can't find you.
Yeah.
Um, for our listeners out there, hopefully you have learned something today. You've had a good listen. If you haven't had a good listen, it's because you've fallen asleep. So wake up again and go back and listen again. And because there's so much knowledge in today's podcast. Till next time, don't forget to keep smiling. Don't forget to find a reason to put something to your knowledge of basket. And also, like Sarah said, don't forget to think about the choices that you're making every single day. Till next time, ka kite. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.